Hey buddy, so specification design pattern. Okay, so first let's understand the meaning of specification. Okay, so specification is equal to requirement. In our code is full of logic, right? We write a lot of logic. Okay, and all those are different logic, but those different logic we require to achieve one responsibility, to achieve one common goal, right? And for that purpose, this specification design pattern is going to help us to combine all those specification, all those different logic all together and achieve one common goal, right? Okay, now specification can be implemented in two ways. One is LINQ-based, that is may sound little complex, but we are going to make it easy. Second is No Linq, and that is very straightforward, is easy to understand. Okay, now let's jump into the code and we will talk and write the code together. So let's go ahead. So we are in the Lucid chart. This diagram today going to help us to implement the same thing over Visual Studio in the code form. Okay, so this is LINQ-based. We are going to implement No Linq-based also. So if you look at this, everything is generic. Only reason to make it generic so you can reuse it, right? As the this specification design pattern says, for sure you can combine all those logic, all those different logic together to achieve one common goal. Plus you can also make sure you're making your code in a way so you can reuse it, right? Okay, so let's try to implement it. First of all, we need one interface, right? Which would be generic interface. And if we go into the code, I have already created one interface which is iSpecification, right? If you look at this, the same name, iSpecification, right? And T, that will help us to make it generic. Okay, now iSpecification, what it says that if you remember in college time we have read about those gates in microprocessor books, which was like AND gate, NOT gate, OR gate, right? So this is basically on that base, on that principle. So even if you forgot this, so if you have in your mind those gates, you will be easily able to relate this design pattern specification with those gates, right? These are the compulsory method of iSpecification. If you see AND, NOT, OR, along with that is satisfied by, right? So let's implement all those four methods. Okay, let's go there. And what I will say, so first of all, let's implement AND, right? And everything would return the same thing, iSpecification of same type of object. Okay, let's name it AND. So first is AND, right? And I would say, so this will accept, and this will accept same kind of input parameter also. So I would say specification. Okay, this is my first, let's say control KD for code format. Okay, so this is my first method, which is AND, right? So AND with iSpecification, whatever interface you have created, same type of return, right? And same type of parameter. You will get more understanding soon. We are going to complete this, why we are doing that way. Okay, now let's go for OR as well. So same thing, just change the OR, right? Same for NOT as well. So NOT and same thing. Here you go, iSpecification, right? And OR NOT. Okay, the important thing which is satisfied. Now this is little different, and this is the method which is going to help us to actually chain all those logic together, to execute all those logic together, whether it's AND, NOT, OR, right? So this is the one of the important method, and every specification design pattern you go and you implement in any way, you may miss that AND, NOT, OR, but is satisfied is always going to be there. Okay, now let's go there, and as you say is means the return type would be Boolean, right? So that we are clear. So let's go ahead and create I will say bool now, right? And I will say is satisfied, right? And I think by also, right, is satisfied by. Yes, so that is the standard name that we're going to use. Okay, and over here I will accept generic, right? So that would be, let's say O is object. Okay, so I'm going to accept generic parameter, right? Generic object over here. Okay, so with this, our generic interface is ready. Okay, now what else? We have this composite class, which is, you see, generic abstract class, right? And that is, inherited by iSpecification interface. So let's go ahead and draw the same thing in our Visual Studio. Okay, let's go there. In the specification folder that I have created here, so I'm going to put everything under specification. Okay, now let's create one more class, and I will say, this is going to be what? So what was the name? The name was composite specification, right? So I would say, okay, composite and specification, right? Okay, here you go. Let's add it. Okay, now it should also be generic. You see, T is there. And let's add T, but make sure this class is abstract class, right? I don't want to create object of this class. Okay, now it should be inherited by that interface. Okay, so let's go there and implement it. Okay, now once we implement it, so we are going to tweak it little. Okay, and that tweak required for is satisfied by. Okay, for sure we have to provide the implementation for and, or, and not, but not for is satisfied by. What we will do here, let's keep and or not together and place is satisfied by at last. It's all up to you. You want on the top, you want to do over here, but I'm adding this just for readability purpose, so I can keep all those operators, all those operands together, and the main logic is satisfied by at the very last. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to make it abstract method. Okay, so let's make it abstract method. Here you go. Okay, now this is important. So this logic is going to be same for all of the class. And what are those class? These: expression specification, and specification, or specification not specification. And one more thing, it's not that you have only these three, and or not. Whatever you can think of, you can create out of your imagination. Just think and add your own, maybe and or not. So whatever operator, whatever operand you can combine, just think of and add over here. Okay, but these are the very basic. Okay, let's go over here. Okay, so these would be same, but every class would have their own logic for is satisfied by. Okay, now here what we need the implementation of and, not, or, but as of now we don't have, right? So what we need, now go to the diagram, we need to create these as well, and specification, or specification not specification. And it is very easy. Even if you look over this, what it says, it is being inherited by composite specification, composite specification, composite specification, right? And these three are also the generic class, right? Now let's go there and create one and specification, right? So I will go here, I will create one more new item, and I will say and specification, and specification. Here you go. Okay, now we need to inherit it. Let's first of all say generic, right? And if you look at this, you see T generic, right? It should be inherited by composite specification. Okay, so let's inherit by composite specification, and let's say this is my generic. Okay, now we have to implement it. So here you go, implement the abstract class, because you remember this was abstract class, right? So if you go to the composite specification, these three would be common logic, but every class will implement in their own way, right? That is why I made it abstract. Now here you go. Over here we are going to implement our logic. Now we need and, right? So what do we need? For sure we need two things for and, right? One would be on the left side and second would be right side, and we will say this and this, right? For that, what we are going to do, we will say here we will create one constructor of abstract class, and let's make it public, otherwise it may shout. So this is public now. Okay, here we need iSpecification. Let's go there and just copy this. So this is going to use everywhere. Okay, so I need one this, and I will call it, let's say I need two sort of specification, right? One would be left specification, and let's fix it. Okay, now second would be write specification. Let's say write specification. Okay, now for sure we have to declare, because these are the parameters, right, which we will receive from other class, or which class we're going to use it. Okay, so I'm going to save some time. I'm going to copy it from here and paste it here, and I will make it private, and if it is private I will make it underscore, right? Let's declare it here. Okay, here you go, and same for right. Okay, now I will assign the object that is coming over here in a parameter, right? So for left I will assign left, right, and for right I will assign same thing. Here you go, right specification. Now it is very simple. For and you need two things. One would be left, second would be right. So same thing we are going to here. I will say, okay, now return, for sure it will be boolean, right? So here you see left specification is satisfied by whatever object it will receive, and here you go, this operator is important because it says and specification, so we have to add logic for and ampersand, and on the right side what would be? It would be right specification. So let's just copy, paste it, and change it to right specification. Here you go, your and specification class is ready. This one, and specification class is ready, right? So what you did, whatever object you are receiving on the left hand side, that is satisfied by, and same for right, that is satisfied by, and then you are putting that and operator to satisfy and specification, right? Now same thing we need for other as well, for or. So we are not going to repeat the code. What I will do, let's copy paste the class. So let's copy and paste. Here you go. Over here let's rename the file from and to or specification, right? And same here, let's rename it to or, and so this class is ready. Okay, I think I missed something, and that was this part. So let's copy this and move here. Okay, and you know what, oh man, I missed this part as well. So no worries, just we are copying pasting. Okay, so now this is good. Over here, what, we need the same thing, that left and right, but the difference is what, instead of and we need or. So we need to put or condition. Here you go, right? So if this or this, it will return true, otherwise it will return false, right? So that is the main difference between and or, right? Or would have just or operator in is satisfied by, and would have and operator in is satisfied by, right? Your and or ready. Now the not is different. Not is happy with only one. They don't need left or right. So let's go there, and we will try to copy paste. Oh, come on. So let's go there, and we will try to copy, where you copy paste. Okay, so here you are, right? Okay, so we have created that class. I think I need to change that as well again. Let's rename it to not specification, right? So here you go, not specification is ready. Now for sure I have to rename these as well, not specification, constructor, and all. I don't need left right here. Let's remove it. Okay, so instead of left right I will say let's say other specification. Okay, so this is my just other specification. Okay, and the same thing, for sure it is a parameter, then I have to declare that here, make it private, right? And I will assign something to this, which I will receive from this, right, as a constructor parameter, and this is good. Now here we don't need two, left or right, we need only one, that I am calling here other specification, right? So I will say let's say return, and here you go, other specification is satisfied by, right, and whatever object we are receiving in a parameter, and we will just say not sign, right? So that means whatever the condition is, it is going to return the opposite, right? That means if the condition is true, it will return false. If the condition is false, it is going to return true, right? So that is not. Okay, so with that, these three are ready. You see, it was so easy, right? Not, or, and, right? If you look at this, it says fields were what? Left specification, right specification, right? Let's open the other one, which was, let's say, or maybe. That's fine. I think and or same thing, right? So let's focus over or. Left specification, right specifications are the field, right? Here you go. You have the field. Then it has two methods, is satisfied y and the constructor method or specification. You have that constructor method and is satisfied y, right? Same for and, left, right, constructor method and is satisfied y method. But for not, you see it has only one field, which was specification. In our case, we named it other specification, but yeah, specification is fine since it has only one, right? And again, it has two methods. One is satisfied by, second is your constructor, right? So same thing we have seen here, not specification, right? Okay, so this is good. Now, LINQ-based expression. So this is going to help us to make LINQ-based, right? LINQ expression. So this is also generic class. So no worries. Let's go ahead to Visual Studio. Again, one more class we need to create, and then we are, pretty much done. And then we just have to call, right? So let's go ahead, add one more class, and let's say expression specification. Here you go. Again, it should be generic. So let's say, hey, this is generic for sure. We know everything is generic here, right? And it should be inherited by composite specification, and let's say this is also generic. Okay, so till here, interface, abstract class, and then the child classes and or not, and then expression specification, everything is going to be generic, right? So we have to inherit here. You see composite specification, we did that. Now what we have to do? We have to implement it. So let's implement. Now it also has their own is satisfied by. That is for sure. We know that, right? That is the only thing which is abstract. Here you go, right? Okay, now let's go there. We need one more method, that will be constructor method. Even if I can show you expression specification and it has one more field, that would be expression. Let's go there, create what? Create constructor, right? And I will say again, this should be public constructor, and it has one expression, right? This would be your func. Here you go. So say func, there you go, right? T and then bool. So let's make it private by underscore. We know this is private because there is no access modifier, but this is good practice. If you add something private that says this is half, this is partial, this is going to be private. Okay, now same thing in the parameter, we know that. Okay, here you go. It already know. Instead of predicate, what I will say, let's rename it to expression. Okay, you can keep it any name, but I'm using just the standard practice. Okay, so expression. Okay, and what? Yeah, we need to assign that. We know that, right? We have done this many times. Okay, so the assignment is done. Okay, now what we have to do? We have to set up this method, which is satisfied y. Okay, so I would say, hey, what? Let's return this, right? For sure, because it's a boolean. And then I will say is satisfied. Sorry. So we can invoke it, or we can just say and pass whatever the object we are receiving. Here you go, right? I mean whatever the expression, right? Just execute that expression and return it, right? Either in boolean, either true or false. Okay, now I think we have done, but we missed one more thing. Let's go there. We actually missed composite specification, right? These things, these still we have not implemented the logic. Okay, we have to implement this, right? Since this is and, so we have to call and specification. So let's call that we have created, and we will say return new, and what? And specification, and it was for sure generic. So let's still say generic, and what? It require two things, right? If I'm right, so if I say alt F12, so yeah, here you go, left specification and right specification, right? So in the left, I will say, whatever the current object is. So I will say this, right? And then I will add this specification, which would be the right one. Okay. Now I did a wrong copy paste. Say let's copy again, say paste, and I am good. Okay. So this is for and specification. Now copy it. Let's go to first or, because the implementation is similar, and instead of and, let's say or specification, right? Now for not, let's paste it here, the same thing. Instead of and, I will say not specification, and we know we need only one. So whatever the request I am receiving, I will pass as it is. Okay. Now my implementation is good. I have implemented everything, the whole diagram, okay, to Visual Studio. Now the calling part, right? How we are going to consume it, use it, that is the important part. Okay. Now what I need, let's go to our program class. Our design pattern is ready. Now we have to use it. Okay. So first, what we have done, we have created one method which is just get user. It is returning list of user, right? It is just dummy we have created here. If you look at this, I have three names only: Parveen, Vikas, Chandan, right? Their last name, their full name, their age, and gender. So we are going to find the records from this with the help of specification design pattern. Okay, let's minimize this. Let's go there. Now we are going to use it LINQ-based. Okay, so what I will say, let's say where, and I would say I'm making my expression, and we need expression class that we have created. And where are you expression specification? Here you go, right? And now we are done with generic. Now it's time to pass the request, the models, right? So I will pass this model, and I will say your user model, right? Now it needs what? It needs one expression. Now let's say O, and I will say hey O dot, right? Here you go, the first name, right? I'm saying hey, wherever the first name is Parveen, send me that result, right? Now remember, this is just object initialization, right? This is going to expression specification, and you are just initializing the object and nothing. You still have not called is satisfied y, so that is why your logic is not going to return. So let's use this object, right? This expression object, and I'm going to call it. Okay, now I'm saying, you know what? Let's say not this one. So let's make a call on this. Say users, I wanted to find, here you go, find all, right? And I will say here, make some expression, right? So I will say oh again, right? I'm going to use the same name. Let's say expression, right? Whatever the object was here, and then I will say is satisfied y. Here you go, and you will pass the O, right? That object, right? Whatever this we are going to pass here, and it is going to satisfy. You see, whatever the generic object we were receiving, we are going to evaluate in form of that expression, and that expression we built here. Now let's try to see the response. Okay, now I'm going to execute it. So come on, let's fix it. Okay, let's put a breakpoint here, execute it, and I should have that name which starts with the first name is Parveen, right? So you see my expression is ready, right? It is returning all those methods, the target, right? All those objects, whatever it requires. Okay, now this is actually this one. This is satisfied by actually going to give me the result. Okay, now I should have, you see, count 1. We had 3 results, sorry, 3 response, 3 data, Parveen, Vikas, Chandan. I called with Parveen name. Okay, now let's see expression. Okay, here you go, right? We have that result. So we have successfully made a call to our first class, which was expression specification. So that is how you can make a call to this. Now and specification, right? Let's stop it. Okay, now this is my first expression, right? Let's call it, let's make one more expression, and I would say where let's say gender should be what? Male, right? And let's say this was left expression, okay, and let's say this is my right expression. You can name it anything, right? Maybe gender expression, let's call it gender expression, right? Gender male expression, right? So this would be specifically for your male query, male expression. This would be your first name. Let's say instead of expression, you call it expression first name, right? And let's just rename it. Okay, now I'm going to make a comment this code, and I will make a call to my AND model, right? So the same thing where response, right? I'm going to see the result. Now what I need here, so this would be my left expression, this would be my right expression. So let's say left expression dot, what I would say, and here you go. You see Visual Studio is also helping me. So this is left specification, this is right specification, and you know what, I'm still not ready. So I did a mistake that making it a response. So it should be my and expression or and specification, right? So let's call it and specification. Okay, now because you know that until we make a call to is satisfied by, we are not going to receive the result, because all these methods are just going to help us to create the object, and that's it, right? You see I specification and specification, and that's all, right? The implementation is inside this method, is satisfied by method, right? Okay, now let's go there and implement it. Okay, so over here now it's time to call it response. Okay, now you know what, let's just copy this part. Okay, and over here when I'm finding a user, I'm saying I need this business logic. Okay, where so you see I have two business logic here. One is this business logic which says the name, the first name should be Praveen, and second says the gender should be male, right? Okay, so what I will do here, instead of this, I will add my this specification, right? I need to combine these two logic together, where the name should be this and gender should be this. Now let's take a look. Okay, let's execute it, and now if I see the response, I have a response called, here you go, Praveen and male. Now let's do one thing. Instead of male, let's say F, and now you see there won't be any response because this is not going to match this AND condition. And if I see, here is C, right? Zero result, right? So that is what AND is going to help us. Okay, now let's do one more thing. Okay, this is AND. Let's comment this logic. Now what I will do here, let's comment this whole logic actually. Okay, now copy it, paste it, let's uncomment this. Instead of AND, let's play with OR specification, right? Okay, so this one, now I'm saying instead of AND, I'm saying OR, right? What I'm saying now, the left expression would be, if you remember, even in the OR there was left and right? So the first would be with Praveen, or now it's not AND, it's OR, right? Or gender would be male. Okay, so now I'm going to execute that specification satisfied by, right, from this this data, this user's data, right? Now expectation is I should have all the response. Why? Because everything is male, right? Okay, now execute it. So I'm going to execute. Okay, here you go. So here you go. You see everything is there, right? Praveen, Vikas, Chandan, right? Everything is male. So that is how. Okay, now you know what I can do, I can use not as well, right? So I will again comment this, copy it before and paste it. Now instead of or, I will say this is my not specification. Over here, instead of this time these, I will say let's make one more, and this would be my gender, right? So I said gender already. This would be my age. Okay, so age, let's say what the age we have, 10. Okay, so yes, let's say 10. Okay, so age 10 expression, here I will say 10. Okay, and instead of this gender I will say age. So I'm making one my expression. Over here I will say greater than 10, right? So if the it should be number. So if the age is greater than 10, that will make my query. Okay, now I'm saying let's copy this. I'm saying I need all the gender male expression, right? Not what I don't need, you know what, I don't need this having age greater than 10, right? So I'm adding that. Okay, now I'm going to execute this not specification, right? So you know the expectation is I should receive only one result, which, because it says, you know, age should not be greater than 10 and it is equal to 10, right? So these should get excluded. Whether, you know, the gender was male, I don't care, right? Okay, let's execute it. Now you would see the magic. Here you go, you see only one response, which is Chandan, for sure male, but age is 10, right? It is not greater than 10. That is why we see that result. Okay, now this is good. And you know what, you can make it as complicated as you want. Maybe, you know, you wanted to put more condition, you wanted to, you know, and condition, and you say, you know, where I need maybe this one, right? This expression, which is first name, I need male and the name should be Parveen, but age should not be greater than 10, right? You can, whatever you can think, just keep adding as per your business logic, right? All those operands as per your need. Okay, now this is good, right? This was LINQ-based. Okay, I'm going to remove it now. I don't need the LINQ-based. Now there is a requirement, you know, very specific, right, to one particular business logic. You wanted to make sure, you know, everything, first name, last name, full name, all those fields, age, gender, nothing should be, you know, empty. You wanted to take that check, you wanted to make that check. If that is valid, if that is satisfied, only then you wanted to do further operation. What you will do? For that, we will create no Linq expression. Okay, and for that, what we need? We will go here, go to specification, and I will create one specification, one specific specification, very dedicated specification. I will say, you know, a specification, and instead I will say user specification. You see, I have added very hard name, which is not generic this time, right? Before, whatever we had created, that was very generic. Now this is very user specific, business specific. Okay, now it should also inherit from, you know, the same abstract class, which was composite specification, which was this, right? So let's copy this, paste it here. Instead of T, we are very specific with the user, right? So I will say user model. Let's okay, I have that namespace. Okay, I can access that. Now I'm good, right? Okay, now we have to implement it. So that abstract class, and here you go, that is satisfied by is required everywhere, right? Okay, now you know what I need. I wanted to check everything, right? So whatever this user object is, user model is, I wanted to make sure string dot is null or white space, right? It should not have that null or white space. Let's not, you know, check everything. I'm going to, you know, test only 2 fields for now, but as per your need, you can check many fields. Okay, so I'm saying that, you know, o dot let's say first name should not be empty, right? And I wanted to say, you know, same thing, the last name should not be empty, right? And then return the Boolean logic, right? And now what you will do here, now let's go to program class. Where is program class? Here you go. Create a object. You will say user specification, right? And let's create an object. Here you go, user specification, right? Now you will say, hey, user specification dot is satisfied by, right? And you will say, you know, whatever users, I think, you know what, we are using one, you know, single model here, not list. So let's say users dot, I'm going to find the very first, right? And let's say KD, I think it will not work here, so let's do it manually. Okay, now user dot first. Okay, so I'm saying, you know, if this logic is satisfied, right, then only perform further operation. So, you know, you can use it for validation purpose. You can check, you know, all the user have values, all the property in the user specification have values, right? And then you can, you know, check that logic and do whatever business logic you can perform here, right? So this specification will help you to write down your custom logic, not that generic logic, right? So LINQ-based is for, your generic based logic, but this is going to help you write custom logic. Okay, so that's all for today's video. I will see you in the next video.